Sarah, Councillor Southern, can we just check that you can hear us all right at home, please?
Certainly can.
That's great, thank you.
Totally thrown last night when the microphones didn't work.
I know, but the visuals of you in silence were really good on YouTube as I was watching it.
Was it?
Yeah.
Could you let
My favourite type.
It was a shame you weren't here to fix it. Anyway, we digress. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this Executive Cabinet meeting. First item of business is any apologies for absence. I've got Councillor Margaret France. Any others?
No others, thanks, Chair.
Okay, good stuff. Right, thank you very much for that. Sorry? Possibly Gordon. Let's just leave it at possibly Gordon. I like that phrase. Write down possibly Gordon. Please, Ruth.
Hi. Yeah, Alistair, could extend Alan Platt and Councillor Deborah and Councillor Alan Platt, please. Apologies.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Craig, thank you. Any declarations of interest anybody's got on any of these items? No. In that case, we will move on swiftly to the minutes of the meeting on Thursday, the 21st of March. Anybody got any issues to raise on those minutes? First of all? No. So I'll propose them as a correct record. Does somebody want to second those, please? Yeah. Thank you, Peter. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. Any public questions, Ruth?
None received, Chair.
Thank you. We romp on then to item 4, which is Councillor Peter Wilson. It is his show tonight. He is the main act and he is on for quite a while, so make yourselves comfortable. It's item 4 is a revenue budget outturn report.
You can do a short version if you want.
No, you do your full show, Peter.
Okay. I was going to say, you can all read. It's there. Any questions?
Questions?
Yeah, indeed. Right, so, yes, the provisional outturn, indeed. Yes, sorry, I've just got completely lost then. So as it says in the report, we previously reported an overspend, which has varied through the year. So it started sort of in the bracket of about $750,000. That sort of dropped halfway through to just over $500,000. Went back up last time, so about similar, just over 700,000, and now is coming at a final total of just in excess of 1.1 million. So clearly, you know, that in itself isn't fantastic news. But what more important, like everything, is how you look at the reasons why that is the case. So what set out over the number of pages in great detail is where those underspends and overspends have occurred and how we end up reaching that 1.1 million figure. And it's probably impossible to summarise or to cover every element in there. But probably some of the key points in terms of the council's budget. Obviously, we had the previous 12 months has been impacted by energy prices, which we've spoken about many times before. It does reference in the report again that those factors which led to the fact that we spent more on utilities with the price increases, particularly when the support scheme was taken away. That should hopefully, as we all know now, we all know from our domestic bills, that should be turning the corner, particularly from April of this year. And as we go into the next sort of period, next quarter, and or even the whole next year, hopefully those prices will come down. So I think that's one thing that we've reported before with known quantity, but of course it still has an impact. In addition to that, we have a number of areas where overspends have hit us. One, it mentions about the housing, and in particular housing benefits, and both in terms of bad debts, in terms of reclaiming money for overpayments. That has been challenging, but again, in the current climate, probably understanding why we've had more pressure on that service. We've also got issues with debts in relation to our major projects. Now, some of that is bad debts, some of that is one operator. Some of that is also where we've incurred extra costs in some of our major projects, such as at Strawberry Meadows or Strawberry Fields. Now, while we're taking the hit now on that, of course, some of that is extra work that's been done to facilitate new tenants moving in. slightly delays in terms of getting those tenants in, but they are now there. So we're hoping again that that will turn around. So there's again, we've got to differentiate here between issues that stand out as problems where maybe money is owed or where we've incurred extra cost, or in the case of those developments where we've incurred extra cost but for a benefit and for a future financial benefit, which we shall see come back into the council. So I think it's important that we look at and sort of focus on those as areas where, again, we've taken what we'd call a hit this year, but hopefully it'll improve. And then there are other areas where it's continuing to be challenging, and it does continue to be challenging, as it mentions there, for teams such as property services. There's been a lot of extra maintenance costs this year. We've got an events programme which we're all very pleased with and proud of, but it comes at a cost. And again, we need to look at that, and we need to look at how we improve and become more efficient at delivering our events, but at the same time, getting that balance right between how much we invest in those and how much it costs and costs the taxpayer. And on that, really, we've got other areas where, perhaps in ICT as well, where there's been some extra costs incurred again this year. So I'd love to be able to sit here and say there's an overspend. It's for one simple reason, and that's that. But it's not, as it says in the report. It's far more nuanced than that, and far more difficult sometimes to dig down. There are certain areas where there's one-off overspends, or others where it's a bit more, as I say, difficult. But there's also positives. There's been underspends in areas such as communities department. We've done well in respect to certain elements on the leisure side, better than what we thought. So it swings and roundabouts, Chair. It is challenging financial times, but we are where we are. I hope in a number of areas that I've mentioned we'll see improvements through the year, and let's hope that is the case. But what we can see is on the general balances, they are just over £4 million, and I think with the last budget meeting we did discuss those level of balances and whether we need to review that in the future, and perhaps we do. In terms of the earmark reserves, again, you can see that sitting now, it's just over £6 million. In the past, that has been more. It's still a healthy amount, and those reserves were there to get through the troughs, as it were, such as we've experienced. But of course, it's just to keep one eye on, because obviously you can never continue to dip into a pot. One day it does go. So we just need to have one eye on that in the future as well. But that's a summary, as brief as it can be, but hopefully highlighting perhaps some of the main points.
Okay, thank you, Peter. And just before I throw it up with two other questions, I think the comment from myself is, yeah, some of those are one-off costs, and one-off costs we knew about, as Peter says, for a reason. Some of those are one-off costs because they are a symptom of our accounts reporting. So we have, for example, with debt, we have to basically assume at this point in time that debt will never be paid. Although it is still a debt, it will still be chased and it still may be paid, and we'll take the benefit of that when it is paid. So some of this is about what we show in the numbers as opposed to the reality on the ground, because the reality on the ground is some of that debt is owed by people who have still had the wherewithal to pay it and may pay it at some point. What we can't do is carry that on forever in our accounts. It has to be dealt with at this point for last year, and that's a point we need to consider. And then the other thing is, as Peter said, is about what is the underlying trend. And I think I recently saw a report from all of the Lancashire councils that all suggested they were overspending. They'd all been assisted like we had about the fact that any capital assets that they had attracted more interest because of interest rates being high. But as interest rates now start to drop as well, councils will not get away with that. So we've all got budget gaps for the next years. It's about how we deal with that, cope with that, and as we have previously highlighted in Chorley, we have a lot of, if you like, discretionary spend that we choose to spend. A lot of other councils don't have that level of discretionary spend, and they are at the floor of, if you like, statutory services. So we are still in a good place comparatively. We just need to take the lessons from this and carry it into this year's budgeting, which hopefully won't show the same thing at the end of next year. Okay, that's my summarisation. Any questions from anybody on that report? Around the room? No? Okay. Councillor Southern. Sorry, Councillor Southern. You put your hand up there.
Just in time there. Thank you, Chair. Yes, there has been quite a bit of overspend. I'm just picking up on they ain't no more than walk with, well, we've got a considerable overspend there. We've got a debt sitting there with one particular tenant. I'm assuming that is rent. That be correct?
It's a mixture, Councillor. I think the risk of talking about this issue in this open forum, bear in mind we're in a public meeting.
Yep. I haven't mentioned who it is.
Tenant, we have to move into part 2 papers, and it is a live situation. So it's live.
Yeah, I got that. I didn't think it was much, to be fair, Chair. What we'll do, we'll leave that to the second part. That's okay?
We can do, but having said that, there's still a limited amount we can say because it's a reporting of an overall number. It's not reporting the specific issue, which is
Yeah.
a matter of ongoing business. So quite what we can say about anything is probably quite limited.
Yeah, appreciate that.
But yeah, so I'd caution us to discuss live.
Yep.
events. All right.
We'll leave it till part 2 and see what we can tease out of it. Thank you.
Any other questions that aren't quite around the specifics? And I apologise for that, and that's, as I said before, because some people may pay that debt tomorrow, in which case it would be a bit incorrect to talk about that. Any other questions, comments? No? In that case, the proposal is that, as noted, as Councillor Wilson made it in paragraphs 2 and 3. Anybody happy to second those? Thank you, Councillor Morwood. All those in favour, please show. Good, that's carried. Thank you. Item 5 then is the capital and balance sheet outturn. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Yep, as it says on the opening paragraphs there, obviously it's just for noting, but the key headlines are over on page 36. So we see that the overall capital programme is actually reduced, and then it explains again the variations that we've had since the last reporting. So we can see there additional changes to the capital programme, just below £4 million there, which is detailed on page 37. So again, we can see where those extra items have come in. But on the flip side of that, so they're additional items, but on the flip side of that, we see that there's actually been a reduction, an overall reduction in the capital programme, and that's mainly through the fact that we've had slippage and reprofiling of schemes, and again, they're detailed over the page on 38. So we can see there are a number of plans that we'd had for work to take place this year hasn't. And the other factor, which again has resulted in a decrease in the overall cost of the capital programme, is that as a consequence of that, and that we actually don't have to borrow as much money as we previously thought, and also that our cash flow position was slightly better than we predicted, and therefore, again, the costs associated haven't been quite as high, so that explains the overall decrease. It does give details there in terms of those schemes relating to the slippage and reprofiling there, so members are going free to pore over that. In terms of the reporting elements, going on to borrowing investments, as I've just said, you can see there that the borrowing costs have come down slightly. And also, both, although the interest rates remain still higher than they were, I think that the situation is beginning, hopefully, to improve a little over this next year again. So maybe that'll assist us. But we can see that the total borrowing is slightly down on what we predicted and what we were last year. So overall, there's nothing particularly outstanding on the capital programme that's extra to point out, apart from, again, just as the usual reporting mechanism. We know that both council tax and business rates, look at the position now, look at the position compared to this time last year, and we see that the collection rates are very, very similar for both, Chair, and I don't think there's anything else to note on this report.
And I think it's recognised across Lancashire that we're one of the better collection authorities, which is good. So well done to those officers involved in that. Everybody, us, and particularly County Council. So, any questions on that report? No. Right. So we are asked to accept the recommendations as outlined by Councillor Wilson in items paragraphs 2, 3, and 4. He's done that. Has somebody happy to second that? Please. Thank you, Councillor Murray. All those in favour, please show. Good. That's carried. Thank you very much. You right to carry on? Need a breather. Second half coming on. Item 6 is a Chorley Quarter 4 performance monitoring report.
Yeah, great, thank you. So yes, overall performance is good. we see that 84% of the projects rated as green or complete. Same again, 84% of corporate strategy measures, and just slightly below 83% of the key service measures, again, are performing on target or within threshold. So the overall picture is good. A couple of highlights out of that. We are on now, we're doing new bus shelters. Every time I drive around or walk around or get a bus, I see new shelters. So Council Low's programme of renewing our bus shelters is being rolled out beautifully. Better late than never. So yes, so we've got the Rural Business Grant Scheme. We've had applications coming in for that. We're delivering the Household Support Fund Phase 4, which I know Councillor Murray previously brought to Cabinet. So again, the money is going out, and the provision is in place. And we continue to do work on our trees in terms of tree planting. So I think we've had 34,500 trees were planted over the last year. And also the number of visits to councillors' leisure centres has increased as well, which is really important, given again that we've discussed that in the past and the challenges around the funding of leisure centres and the use. And again, in fairness to Councillor Murray and to Jenny and the team, a lot of work is being done there, a lot more required, but we're definitely moving in the right direction. So let's hope that continues. So that's the positives. In terms of where we are off track on the key projects, local plan is rated as amber. Again, albeit amber isn't great, it's an improvement, I think, because previously we've had that down as red. So we see that actually progress is being made, as we discussed before. Working on those numbers, working with our partners, it is complicated, particularly people with slightly different ambitions and targets in their own head. But I know that work continues, so we'll continue to make sure we push forward and get the plan implemented as quickly as we can. The public transport networks, again rated as amber, but we mentioned that we've had 15 of the 19 shelters delivered, and we're continuing at a pace now to get the rest delivered. I think it's far more than that actually being done, but this is obviously looking back. So again, I hope that will be brought back on track. And the transformation programme rated as amber, and I always enjoy when I read the word more collaborative approach to be taking place. So there you are. That's a challenge for our officers to be more collaborative. I look forward to the results. In terms of indicators, we've got NEETs. Again, there is not on target. That is obviously always worrying. I mean, it's a reflection of the times in which we live. But again, I think there's details there in the report about what we're doing to actually address that and work with partners. Bus shelters I've already mentioned. The employment rate, that's improving. We are actually moving in the right direction on that one, albeit still slightly off track. But again, it's about monitoring the work you're doing and the results, and hopefully we're seeing the fact that is slightly better. The percentage of major applications decided within 13 weeks. I have actually received a further email on this, which slightly revises the numbers, but I think Councillor Morwood wants to pick up on that. That's right. That's right.
Microphone. Oh, microphone, sorry. The other one. I'm not used to turning left. Right, you'll have received what's called a correction note for that item. The data originally was incorrect in that it's supposed to be data that's presented the year to date, and it was shown just within that quarter. So with that correction, the actual result is a change from the 67% that it was in the original to 88%, which is gives us a green star.
I was so glad you didn't say 68%. That would have been a very good introduction for a very disappointing figure, but 88 is very good. Well done, Councillor.
Okay, lovely. Thanks for that.
That can be corrected, I'm sure, sometime.
And then finally, in respect of this report, the residence survey, which does actually come back with some interesting reading. I think we've always performed relatively strongly. I think we continue to perform strongly, and that's recognised by residents with the overall responses there, and the satisfaction rates. What's slightly disappointing with it is it's down from where we were. However, I think given the world in which we live and the problems of which exist, it is little wonder that people are feeling a little dissatisfied with the state of the world. And that's not just me taking a view on that. That is backed up by the fact that when you look at the LGA responses, satisfaction is going down across the board, and probably more encouraging for us is the fact that those rates which they are measuring at, we continue to outperform the national averages. So when we look at what people rate their councils as and their satisfactions with services, Chorley is still above the national average and quite considerably in some areas. So never satisfied when the numbers go down and you want them to go up. And therefore it sets a challenge for us, which is we've got to continue with our work, or we've got to improve what we do. But you have to put it in that context, because to take it in isolation would be naive, and we're certainly not going to be accused of that.
You could argue it's a time for a change. Questions, please, members. Councillor Law.
Thank you, Chair. Take the point that Councillor Wilson's made that we're dealing with Q4 figures on bush shelters, but just for the information that next time on Q1 of the new monitoring period, the project status will be green, because we have completed 41 bush shelters, and if everything is on track, we should, out of the 5-year programme, come in the schedule by about 12 months. We were just waiting for the Made in China stickers to be put on the shelters.
I thought you were going to say it's rated as green because you put grass on the roof.
You did tweak the tiger's tail, Councillor Wilson. Any other comments or questions on that report? Councillor Howarth.
Percentage of households living in fuel poverty. Seems quite staggering that 1 in 6 people are living in fuel poverty, and 11.1% is quite high. We haven't had the report for essentially Q1 yet. Is the trend, I guess because it's summer, likely to be going down over the next year?
Fuel poverty, is it?
Yeah.
The trend. Well, I mean, obviously, there's always the sort of seasonal issue with it, I suppose. But no, the trend has been going up, and up and up. And I will say this now: I hope people reflect on that in 3 weeks' time.
Mr. Sinnott, would you like to comment?
Fuel poverty has gone up considerably because actually it is a fairly straightforward calculation based upon what percentage of a household's income is spent on heating the home, and so therefore if utility prices go up significantly, then unless household incomes also match, which obviously they haven't done, more people will go into fuel poverty. It will improve slightly given that utility costs are coming down, but they are still a lot higher than they were a few years ago. And so I would anticipate that overall it probably won't make very much difference. It is often people living in larger, older properties within the borough who suffer from fuel poverty, because obviously it's more expensive to heat those, but also in places like terraced houses where energy efficiency is generally poorer, that has an impact as well. But yeah, if there's any shift, I would imagine it will be relatively small in the coming months.
Okay, with that, response. Okay. Any other questions or comments? No. In that case, then, we are asked to note the report, and it is noted. If everybody's okay with that. Yep. Right. Item 7 is Key Contracts and Partnerships Framework Refresh. Councillor Wilson again.
Thanks. So, hopefully a relatively straightforward report for members to digest. Clearly, we have the framework in place, which ensures that we regularly monitor and report on our key partnerships. So there are 14 contracts and partnerships, and a number of these are monitored by ourselves and South Ribble. And one of the recommendations in the report, in terms of part of the refresh, is that we align the framework across both councils. So obviously there are certain key partners that differ, but this is also about assisting those who work in shared services, that we deal with it in the same manner. So that gives there the framework for what we measure, as it were, is what a key partner is. So we look at the financial value, look at the impacts of the delivery for the council's objectives, how relevant the council is on the proposed partner for service delivery, the degree of risk, and the length, timescales, the commitments, our significance. That's what qualifies, as it were, someone to be considered on that partnership. And again, those the partnerships are reported back here, to both individual councils. So with some tweaks that are detailed on pages 76 and 77, as I say, that issue with South Ribble being probably the most significant change. It's simply a question of refreshing it so that is in place for it to continue to monitor those partnerships.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any comments or questions on that report anybody's got to make at all? No? In that case, we're asked to accept the recommendation in paragraph 2 to approve the refreshed key contracts and partnerships framework. So we have to second that, please. Thank you, Councillor Lowe. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. That's passed as well. Item 8 is the merchant acquiring services tender. Councillor Wilson.
Okay, so as it says in the report, this contract is for the transactions which take place with the council through debit and credit card payments. I think in the report it says about £5.5 million of transactions take place each year, so significant, clearly. And it's important that we have the facilities in place, obviously, in order to conduct those transactions. But the exercise in front of us is to refresh that. The proposal is for a 3-year contract with a possible extension of another 2. And we are working jointly there with South Ribble and Preston. That's the plan, in order that we get greater efficiencies in the procurement exercise and hopefully make it more attractive to bidders to come in and supply that service for us. So it says details on the report that we're looking to use BRC Consulting Services to manage that market tender process. And then when that decision finally is made, that would come back to myself as the executive member. And it does detail there, again, page 91, the evaluation criteria. So overall, we're looking at quality at 25%, social value at 20%, and price at 55%. And there's even a breakdown of the quality, which I do like. I like the fact that given it's a payment processing system, effectively only 3% valued at what a payment processing is. But no, I'm sure that's skewed in terms of, because I've been unfair, because it is broken. They do break down the quality dynamics, which is useful for us to actually see. So again, it's a must in terms of obviously making sure that infrastructure is in place, and hopefully with the manner in which we're doing it, we'll get the best possible outcome.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any questions on that? Very exciting described report, but quite boring underneath. Like Councillor Wilson himself. Any comments, questions? Right, the proposal is as recommended in paragraphs 2, 3 and 4. Anybody happy to second that? Yes, thank you, Councillor Howarth. All those in favour, please show. Very good. Right, excellent. And item 9, before you get a break, Peter, is the closure of council charities.
Being called boring by you is one of the nicer things you've said to me. Right, closure of council charities. Again, a sort of a bit more of a quirky one, this, but as it details in the report, we have 4 charities which we are aware of, which are the William Cocker Charity, WB Parks, HT Parks Baths Fund, and McKnight Memorial Fund. And the recommendation is they are closed. These have been effectively in existence but not in operation for many, many, many years. And that's why the proposal is coming forward, that we actually officially close the charities. It does give details on page 94 of those charities and their original purpose. So the proposal is that the funds that are left in each one, and the relatively small funds, as we can see in each charity there, that those monies are divvied up, as it were, into something similar to based on the purpose of the charity that was formed. Not quite sure how we do that with the one at Withnell for infectious diseases, but I'm sure we'll think of something.
If we wait long enough.
If we wait long enough. But obviously the baths at Brinskull, quite straightforward, and then looking at the educational lectures in the memory of Edward McKnight. Again, I'm sure we'll come up with something equally imaginative. But that's the proposal, is to effectively give out those funds for the similar purposes and formally close the charities which they haven't actually functioned for many, many years.
Okay. Something a bit different there from the usual. Any questions on that report? No. 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 Okay, so we are asked to confirm the recommendations in paragraphs 2 and 3 as Peter outlined. So we're happy to second that proposal, please. Okay, thank you, Councillor Morwood. All those in favour, please show. Excellent. Right. We therefore move to exclude the public and press, which I will propose before we move to part 2 papers. Will somebody second that for